Today is the last installment of our Holy Week series. Today is Resurrection Sunday, or commercially known as Easter. So we spent time going through this entire Holy Week thing. And we know that Jesus gets up out of the grave, and the women go early in the morning. Mary and Martha arrive at the tomb, and he's not there. And then they start to think that as all of the Jews had started to conspire that they thought that somebody would steal his body, they show up and Jesus' body is not there. The tomb has been rolled away. The rock has been rolled away from the tomb. And then the angel shows up. I know you know the story. Angel shows up. And the angel shows up and lets them know that he has risen as he has said. This is the culmination. This is the culmination of all things old. Up until this point, we have been making a transition from old covenant to new covenant. Some things have remained the same, some things have not. But this is the transition from old covenant to new covenant. We see various things. We see types of the old covenant. We see Jesus replacing the old covenant. We see him putting things into motion. But until he rises from the dead, there is no power. When he rises from the dead, he proves that he is indeed Messiah and that he is God. See, there had been plenty of men who throughout history who had been able to tap into things spiritually, and they've been able to heal people. And we've seen Elijah and Elisha do miracles. We've seen Moses through God do miracles. We've seen all these people, but at this moment, what we see is that Jesus, when he rises from the dead, he is no longer in the grave, and it's not just his spirit, but his body too rises. We see power. That we don't just serve a deity, we serve the one true and living God. And he goes and he shows himself to the disciples. And Thomas isn't there. He shows himself to the disciples and they cannot believe what they're seeing, but he lets them touch his hands. And when Thomas gets there, because Thomas is having a moment, as all of them had yesterday, he says, I don't believe you. You had to be hallucinating. And he says, unless I touch his hands and I put my hand in his side, I will not believe it. Thomas is having a crisis of faith. Thomas has believed that he has wasted the last 3 years of his life, and he does not know what he believes. And Jesus comes back, he doubles back, and he shows himself to Thomas. It's not quite Resurrection Sunday, but same story. He shows himself to Thomas, and Thomas too believes. Jesus shows himself to the people, because if he had not shown himself to the people, it would have just been hearsay. But Jesus shows himself to those whom he loved most. And they carried this gospel near and far, and they passed down this great legacy of faith. This great legacy of faith. Now, of course, on the Christian calendar in 40 days, we'll see Pentecost. And that's when they'll begin to go and share this great gospel. But for the purposes of Holy Week, this is it. But what I want you to take away from today's video is that Jesus will show himself to you if you ask him to. If you're fighting with doubt, if you're wrestling with the legitimacy of him or him, this being just stories about something in history, or whether this is the true and living God, God will show himself to you if you ask him. If you don't believe in the power of prayer, I just dare you to pray and say, well, you know what? I don't know if you're real, but if you'll show yourself to me, I want to believe. I believe without a shadow of doubt, I have seen him do it to various people, that if you will ask him to show himself to you, he will do it. Now be careful what you ask for. Happy Resurrection Day, folks. Y'all be blessed.